This lesson is on radicals. If you see an example below that is similar to the current question you're working on, you can download my app referenced in the video caption. This app can be used to quickly navigate all of my Math 10 lessons and examples, so you can quickly go to the example below if you download that app. So the radical. Below is an example of a radical expression, or we can just call it a radical. So below you would say it's the cube root of 27. There are three components to a radical. This sign here is called the radical symbol. The number under the radical sign is called the radicand. And this number here is called the index of the radical. If there is no number here, it is just a square root, and it would have a number 2 that you just don't write there. A 3, as in this case, is a cube root. A 4 and 5, etc. are 4th, 5th, etc. roots. Example 1. Evaluate square root of 16. So what number multiplied by itself equals 16? The answer is 4. 4 times 4 is 16. Check this on your calculator. Find the square root sign. You may have to press second to access it, then press in 16 and enter. Note that square root gets its name from the root leg of a square being the root, and the radicand being the area of the square. So here we have a square. The area is 16, let's say. What are the length and width of the square? Well, they are 4 and 4. Again, another name for the length of the leg of the square is the root. That's why we call it the square root. Example 2. Evaluate the cube root of 27. What number multiplied by itself 3 times equals 27? The answer is 3. 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27. Check this on your calculator. Find the radical symbol that has an x or some other variable in front of it. First, press 3 for the index value. That will be what your calculator uses as that x value. Then the radical symbol that looks something like this. And then press 27 for the radicand. Then enter. And you should get 3 as the answer. And depending on what kind of calculator you have, the order of button pushes that you do there and numbers may vary. Example 3. Evaluate the cube root of negative 8. So what number multiplied by itself 3 times equals negative 8? The answer is negative 2. Negative 2 times negative 2 is a positive 4, and then positive 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. Check this on your calculator. Again, find the radical symbol that has an x or some other variable in front of it. First, press 3 for the index value, then the radical symbol that looks something like this, and then press negative 8 for the radicand, then enter, and you should get negative 2 as the answer. Note that a radicand can only be negative if the index is an odd value. So in our case, it was a 3, as we'll see in the next example. Example 4. Evaluate the square root of negative 4. So what two numbers multiply to negative 4? They have to be the same number. There is no answer, since negative 2 times negative 2 would equal positive 4, and positive 2 times positive 2 would equal positive 4. Both of those numbers have to be the same. So your answer in this case would be no solution, no answer. So the general rule that comes out of this example is that the radicand can never be negative with an even value for the index, since an even value for the index means the root value always multiplies itself an even number of times, which means it will always become a positive value. That is, -2 times -2 is positive 4. -2 times -2 times -2 times -2, so that's 4 times, equals positive 16, etc. So in our case, the index value is a what? It is a 2 here. And that's what I described here. So this would have been square root of positive 4, could be a -2. And then the fourth root of positive 16, of positive 16 could be a -2. So we'll cover this later, if not in grade 10, in grade 11, that when you are using algebra and you take the square root of a positive number, you actually have to write that it could be a plus or a minus number. So remember this now. If your index is an even number and your radicand is a negative number, you will not be able to have a solution. And you don't necessarily have to memorize this word for word here, because you would be able to figure out on your own, oh, well, then, no, that's impossible. There are no two numbers that can multiply to -4 that are also the same number. So don't freak out if you find that's the case when you're doing your question on your test or your homework. Example 5. Evaluate negative square root of 4. So this question is actually slightly different than example 4. It does have an answer. The negative sign is now in front of the radical expression. It's the exact same as this expression. -1 times the square root of 4. So the answer is just -1 times 2, because 2 is the square root of 4, so the answer is -2. The negative is separate from the radical, unlike the previous example, where it is part of the radicand sign. So again, that negative is in front of the radical there. Okay, it's in front of it, it's separate from it, so think of that as a -1 in front of the square root 4, so you can simplify it like this. Example 6. Estimate square root of 5 to 2 decimal places. We know that the square root of 4 is 2. Oh, first of all, square root of 5 does not have an even square root, of course. And we know that the square root of 9 is a 3. We can estimate that the square root of 5 is 2 point something, where the 10th place is less than 5, since 5 is closer to 4 than 9. So what do I mean by that? You can see that the square root of 4 is 2, the square root of 9 is 3, the square root in question is the square root of 5. Therefore, the square root of 5 is going to be 2 point something, and 5 is closer to 4 than 9, so it's going to be 2 point, say, 2 something, or 2.3 something here, because 5 is closer to 4 than 9. So you would need to guess, basically, you would need to guess if you don't have a calculator, but typically we don't estimate roots in the real world, so let's just calculate the value to the nearest 100th place as the question requests, and it is 2.236067978, and rounding to 2 decimal places we get 2.24. And that concludes this lesson.